It was early August 2020, and I woke up in Bryson City, North Carolina with a country-mile-wide grin on my face. I quickly hit the road, heading east through the fog along North Carolina State Road 19. Bryson City is home to the Great Smoky Mountains Railroad, whose Nantahala Gorge excursion I intended to chase later in the morning. On select dates, the train is powered in part by the Queen of the Smokies, 280 steamer number 1702. While the excursion travels west out of Bryson City, the Queen's engine shop is located on the east end of the line in Dillsboro, so I figured that there would be an early morning ferry move of the 1702 to get her to Bryson. I was correct and intercepted the move near Wilmot. I was stoked to be chasing the steamer through the valley, especially on an unscheduled ferry move. Tracks between Bryson and Dillsboro are used November through March for Tuckasegee excursions, making this irregular power bounce the only action on the overgrown Tuck tracks during the summer. Stopping to flag the crossing in Whittier gave me just enough time to set up west of the town intersection. The Smokies are filled with quaint mountain towns like Whittier, with nothing more than a railroad crossing and a stop sign. Approaching Bryson, I stopped once more near the fields of Ferguson, the summit of the grade on the Tuckasegee side of Bryson City. Pulling into Bryson City, 1702 rolled past its awaiting consist, spotted earlier in the morning by the diesels. The Queen would then reverse onto the train, and passengers would begin the boarding process. Once 1702 had coupled onto the consist, I had about an hour to do some recon just to make sure the locations I had in mind were up to par. Driving around west of Bryson, I found some neat rolling stock among the kudzu. No telling how long those have been there. Back in Bryson City in 1702 was about ready to depart, so I jumped to the bridge. I was speechless as the Baldwin thundered its way over the river. Rollin' coal, baby. Well, technically fuel oil, but nonetheless, I was loving it. From Bryson, the Nantahala excursion tackles the Smokies 32 miles west through Almond, the Nantahala Outdoor Center at Wesser, and finally stopping at the end of active trackage in Hewitt. It will take 1702 over an hour and a half to bring the train to the end of the line, at which point the diesels will lead eastbound, stopping for a layover at the Outdoor Center. Some of the guests on today's westbound train will get off in Wesser and do a bit of rafting before being shuttled back to Bryson. It sounded like a fun day for the tourists on board, but I couldn't help but think I was going to have an even better time giving chase. Completed in September of 1942 by Baldwin, 1702 was originally built for the U.S. Army. It was designated as an S-160 and worked for the government on Fort Bragg property for a couple of years. In 1946, it was sold off of the Army roster and bounced around from short line to short line until GSMR acquired the Queen in 1991. Undergoing a complete restoration by the railroad, it was reintroduced to service in 2016 and has been putting on spectacular displays like this ever since. The GSMR has been operating with an extended consist in order to accommodate to social distancing requirements, which in turn means a heavier train, and that means an even better show for the eager rail fans. This is the first of 2 uphill climbs 1702 will face on the Nantahala route. You would have thought there was a forest fire. I was psyched. The train was easy to catch up to as I pulled up to my 3rd spot in less than 4 miles. Crossing over the Fontana Lake near Almond, the tracks begin to skirt the Nantahala River, continuing all the way into the Gorge. This is the last public access point until then, but wow, is it gorgeous. The river, the mountains, and a steam engine. I had it all at Almond. From Almond, it's a steep drop into the gorge, at least for this Floridian it is. The drive downgrade was intense. I basically drifted in neutral and rode the brakes the entire way. What was even crazier to me was that the train was dropping the same amount I was, albeit much slower and with more mileage to do so. By the time I had arrived at the outdoor center, a downpour had moved in, but I'm rarely deterred, especially today. I was treated to an up-close roll-by as the excursion stopped for the crossing to be flagged. Getting a little nervous about my camera, I quickly packed up and hit the road. The NOC makes me feel like a Disney water park came to life. It's got little restaurants, rafting, and rapids, only it's all legitimate. The outdoor center sits at the bottom of the grade for the GSMR, and the tracks see a steep climb uphill before cutting over to diesel power. Much of this climb is parallel to the Nantahala River, visible at select locations from the roadway. The weather was so cool down in the gorge, the steam coming off the river made me feel like I was in some sort of an alternate reality. The steep grade, heavy con assist, and wet rail made for a perfect storm for us rail fans as 1702 struggled to yank its train uphill. The tracks and the road eventually meet back up near a quarry outside of Hewitt, where I had pulled off for a last-minute run-by. At one point in GSMR history, the quarry used to provide the railroad with some freight service, but unfortunately Smoky Mountain Freight is nothing more than a memory in 2020. Anyway, I had found myself oohing and awing at 1702 one final time as it slowly thundered up the grade on the Hewitt Pass track. I've said it before and I'll say it again, but for me, nothing tops a steam engine negotiating mountain grades with such beautiful backdrops. Jaw-dropping. As if the sight, sound, and smell aren't enough, the plumes of hot smoke add just another factor to the sensory overload that is 1702. Unbeknownst to me, this is the location that the train stops at in order to drop off the rafting guests. Once the passengers had detrained, the diesels took over and pulled the train back eastbound and towards the layover at Wesser. I set up with more than enough time at the NOC and decided to have a look around. The property is huge, with zip lining courses, multiple restaurants and overlooks, ample room for rafting courses and lodging for the NOC's 60 or so live-in employees. The NOC and GSMR work quite well together, with 5 excursions a week during the summer season making the trip to Wesser, and I gotta say I can understand the draw. It seriously took all the willpower I possessed not to grab a raft for an hour or two. The rafting tours begin west of Hewitt, where an army of outshopped raft buses take guests to the drop-off upstream, and the river does the rest. You can tell that the outdoor center is at the very bottom of the gorge by the track profile, as GP9 number 1751 eases the consist into the 90-minute layover. What a beauty. It's no wonder all of western North Carolina is proud of the 1702. What the guests saw as an opportunity to sightsee for 90 minutes, I saw as an opportunity to stare at the S-160 for just as long. Some things cameras just don't do justice, and standing next to the Baldwin-built 280 is one of them. Much like any other machine, some parts on steam engines are universal and interchangeable. I don't know exactly what this thing is, but I do know it was originally built for the Cotton Belt Railroad. Pretty cool. With about 10 minutes until departure, I decided to walk all the way down to the platform and find the diesels. I didn't want to go beyond the platform, so this is all I saw of them. The excursion train was quick to depart, but I had plenty of time to get back to the next public access point in Almond. I put the Jeep through its paces yet again as the two of us climbed up and out of the gorge. In Almond, I did a little putzing around and found the steepest road I had encountered on the trip. The camera doesn't quite capture the intensity of this either, but I was riding the brakes pretty hard and struggled to stay under 15 miles an hour. I had my fun on the roads, and much to my delight, the excursion showed up a lot sooner than I was expecting. I don't usually get too caught up in the history of trackside relics, but the Almond Depot is actually super cool. Now a private residence, it was once the meeting place for board members of the Southern Railway, conveniently sitting within a stone's throw of D.W. Brosnan's property, president of the Southern Railway for quite some time. In 1964, Model Railways magazine selected Brosnan to be the first recipient of their Man of the Year award, a distinction that Railway Age magazine still gives out to this date. Built and operated by the Southern Railway, the Murphy branch out of Asheville used to see 124 miles into the line's namesake town, pretty close to Tennessee. With the Southern and N&W merger, the Murphy branch fell into the hands of the Norfolk Southern. GSMR came along in 1988 and bought trackage from Dillsboro West from the Norfolk Southern. In 2014, the remainder of active Murphy branch trackage was sold to Watco, whose Blue Ridge Southern Short Line operates between Asheville and Dillsboro. As I got closer and closer to Bryson City, the skies opened up on me once more. I was looking forward to this shot all day and took shelter in my car in order to stick it out. The rain was still coming down as I approached Bryson, and I decided to pull off near a neat little private crossing for one final shot. This is what it all boiled down to. I had a spectacular day on the Great Smoky Mountains Railroad, chasing the 1702 leading west along almost the entire line. What more could I have asked for? It was a great day on an even better railroad, but I had a long drive ahead of me to Winston-Salem with a 5 a.m. wake-up call the next day for the Yadkin Valley Railroad. And for that reason, I begrudgingly left the GSMR in my rear views. Well, for now at least. Thanks for railfanning with me today, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video.